All right, what's going on, guys? Thanks so much for taking the time to invest in the Train Heroic off-camp MMA program that I designed based off of my experiences with all the athletes that I've worked with over the years. Now, I probably worked with over 200 complete fighters at the elite level. So this is usually what we would do for an off-camp program. Now, for the allotted time that we have, and sometimes it's very minimal, we want to make sure that we're gaining that general physical preparedness. We're gaining that GPP or fitness to help increase the readiness to go into camp. So today I'm going to go over the overview. I'm also going to give you some tips and also the focus points of what this program entails so that you can be ready when the time comes to start your fight camp. All right, so the entire objective for this program is going to be to raise several baseline strengths to increase readiness for the in-camp training. Now, the in-camp training can start 8 weeks, can start 6 weeks out. We want to be ready from a fitness level, from a controlled environment to help increase all of these aspects of your physical preparation so that you can be ready when the time comes. For the most part, I hate it when guys come into camp and they're not physically prepared, right? So now we have to take the time to make sure that they are getting in shape while they're in camp, and that shouldn't be the case. They should be already ready or in shape to a degree to help them, cater along and pace themselves appropriately so that we can peak them right on time for the fight. All right, so for the focus points in this program, it's going to be generally based upon increasing other capacities of aerobic, anaerobic, and strength capacity. So we're working to improve that aerobic and strength capacities with means of exercises, of tempos, and other protocols that I use inside the program to get you ready at all times. All right. The second thing that we're going to be looking at, again, like I talked about, is general physical preparedness, all right? We're going to increase the general fitness of yourself, right, of the athlete. So we want to make sure that you're prepared at all angles from a physical perspective, from a physiological perspective, and also from a mental perspective, right? Because we want to increase coordination, we want to increase balance, we want to increase that proprioception. All that stuff comes into play, all right? Now, number 3, again, like I talked about, is going to increase that coordination, balance, and overall mobility. Now, what is mobility? Mobility, in my definition, is active and range control in all joint capsules. So we want to be able to increase that, have the flexibility to get in certain positions, but also be strong in those positions. That's very important when you're talking about jiu-jitsu and just any form of combat sports, right? It doesn't mean that, you only need to focus on one particular thing. We want to work on all these things, but again, we want to make sure we're hitting that particular mean so that, again, there's no gaps. And that's what we want to do. We want to fill those gaps, okay? Number 4 is going to be working through exercises that will improve performance. Now, I'm going to give you basic baseline exercises or compound lifts that will help you go into camp. Now, when you start camp, you're going to be working more higher intensity lifts, more higher dynamic lifts. So we're going to be working through the force velocity curve. So right here is where we're going to be increasing that ability to do the exercise appropriately. So again, we're practicing the exercise to enhance the quality of the movement. And you're going to be also getting some type of hypertrophy or muscle building effect with that because we want to build the body up to improve on our armor, right? We want to make sure that the body is stable and has structural sound components. So when you get into the fight camp, your body's not going to break down. So again, hypertrophy is good. I know we're in a weight class sport, but again, we want to make sure we're building the muscle appropriately so that you don't get injured. And also you have the ability to contract that muscle so that you can produce force and absorb force going further, all right? So we're going to be using a step loading progression to increase that hypertrophy and strength. So each week, you're going to be doing some sort of repetition phase. So you're looking at the 9s waves, the 7 waves, and the 5s waves. And this is going to help with strength endurance. This is also going to help with building hypertrophy. Now, I'll go into more detail on the phases in a minute, but I just wanted to go over the entire overview of the program. Now, the program itself is going to be a 3-day-a-week training. You're going to have one day that's going to be dedicated towards aerobic power and one day that's going to be dedicated towards lactic power. Now, the 2 different components there is aerobic power is working in the higher range of your VO2 max. So we're going to increase the ability to take in that oxygen and work through it and then recover properly. Lactic power, on the other hand, is the ability to accumulate lactic acid or lactate in the working muscle so that you have the ability to buffer it out going further inside of camp. Now that's just for the conditioning. As far as the strength components, as far as the strength training it goes inside the weight room, we are gonna be doing, like I said, those 9s waves, 5s waves, right? Or 7s waves and 5s waves. And from that, you're gonna be working 2 weeks on that particular phase. Now, the 2 weeks are gonna be an accumulation, an intensification, and then a realization. On the last 2 weeks, that's going to be your testing weeks. Those are gonna be very hard because you're gonna be doing what's called a rate of perceived exertion up to a 9 and a 10. So the intensities or the overall efforts are going to be very high. So we'll get into more detail on that coming up.